welcome. It's nice to meet you. My name is Ann Jackson. I am one of the co-leaders of your Phoenix Tableau user group. I co-lead along with Michael. I kind of like to go through my credentials, kind of give you an idea of who I am professionally to understand, what I'm doing here, and then we'll do the same for Michael. So I'm a Tableau Desktop Certified Professional and a Desktop Qualified Associate. I am currently and recently a data visualization consultant at Slalom. I will say that we have Slalom folks in the room tonight, so if you want to know more about Slalom, you can hit up Macaroon Girl in the back, Angie. Her and I work together, so if you're interested in the concept of doing Tableau full-time or getting more into the world of data visualization or ETL, please talk to us. More about me, I run a personal blog, it's jackson2.com. If you're familiar with the Tableau world, a lot of it happens socially via Twitter, so I always like to give out my Twitter handle. So as an example, I'm broadcasting this video live on Twitter right now to those that can't make it and that kind of broader global audience. That's a great way to keep pulse of sort of like the deeper community on Tableau, so I encourage you to follow me on Twitter. If you want to keep it more professional, I'm also active on LinkedIn as well. It's just my name with my middle initial there. And if you want to email me directly, there's my business email, pretty easy, just ann.jackson@slalom.com. All right, Michael, you're up.
All right, pressure. Hi everyone, my name is Michael Perillo, another co-leader of the Phoenix Tableau user group. I'm a desktop qualified associate, Tableau certified server professional. Been working in Tableau now, about 5 years. As Ann mentioned, we're very engaged in social networking. If you want to know about what's going on, different events, workshops, training, things like that, please connect with us. We've got our LinkedIn profiles up on the slide decks. We're both on Twitter. Any questions, please ask us. We're here till as long as you need us, so please
Within reason.
ask any questions. Within reason. Otherwise,
have to work
it's
tomorrow.
$150, $200 rate. Just kidding. So
Awesome.
again, thanks all for coming out. If you are brand new to it, please provide some feedback to us. Let us know what you're interested in. If this is an engagement that you're looking to do, if you're just interested personally in Tableau, looking to get into data visualization, data analytics. We've got a lot of great things coming up this year as far as events, workshops, trainings, immersion programs. So all those types of things you're going to hear more and more about once you start connecting with us and asking questions. Okay.
And I think it's kind of interesting, like about half of you guys raise your hand, so you may not know what we're about. We're both really about community, so it's supposed to be informal. If you'll see people with your laptops out, that's totally cool. My dream for this group is just to continue to grow and to have you guys in the audience up here participating, and for me to just sit back and be so inspired by everyone. So please take it for what it is, and I'm really happy that you guys are here and helping us grow this. Okay. So what's on the agenda for today? Just a kind of high level, it's broken up into two parts. So the first half is sort of a recurring series we've got going on where I call it Get Tableau Fit. It's basically where I'm going to take a community challenge and walk through it with you guys. I did post it out there for you to go through, so if someone has it, this would be the time to prep your viz so that you can be part of that conversation. The other half of this, Michael's going to be talking about data governance, and it's actually going to feed really well into our April topic where we have Justin, who's going to take data governance to the next level. So data governance squared, if you will, and it should be really exciting. So I'll kind of start off with some particulars in the beginning. So I like to do a community update, so we'll talk 2017 events, the Iron Viz feeder, which I know you guys are all going to participate in. And then Tableau 10.2 actually came out at the beginning of March. Just kind of a hand raise, how many people are on 10.2? Ish, yeah, okay, so that's like a quarter. How many are on 10.0 or some 10 earlier version? Decent, 9X? Anyone on 8? Good. That's good, no, that's really good. I mean, I'll tell you, like, I'm comfortable anywhere from like 9.3 on, because 10.2 is so new. It's one of those things, like either you upgraded or you're not quite there yet. So we'll walk through a couple of the features, and then I'll dive into the Get Tableau Fit, and then data governance. Okay, so our community update. This is our 2017 events list. I just want to make sure everyone, like, I'm a very structured individual, so I like to know when things are going to occur, just so that it's clear. This user group session's the third Thursday of every month. The April one is posted up here. There's a hyperlink. However you guys engage with us, I think most of you probably get an email from Tableau letting you know that this is going to happen. So you'll still have that. That'll be there. Other ways you can get this hyperlink are either through LinkedIn, or I'll post it on our Tableau community page, like our community forums as well, if you don't get it when you leave the room. There's also a Data Unleashed event coming up. Michael, did you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I'll actually go over it right before my presentation. I'll
Okay.
spend about 5 minutes on that.
And then, as you guys kind of know, I mean, we're in the University of Phoenix building, so the UOP is actually hosting a hackathon towards the end of May that's kind of spanning the weekend that they wanted us to mention. Okay, so talking about the community and how people are getting involved, recently there was a Hacking Open Data Hackathon. Any of you guys aware of that or see anything that came out of that? Raise your hand if you participated or saw any visits or were aware that it existed. Okay, that's good. So for those of you that don't know, and that's totally fine, Tableau Tableau has Tableau Public, which is a free version of their software where anyone can take a flat file of data and publish it up to Tableau Online. It's a great way to share open source data visualization and to honestly build a professional portfolio for yourself. I mean, the amount of data out there is just astounding. So it's kind of out there for you to pick and choose from. And kind of with that vein in mind and the idea of giving back to the community and always doing something positive with data visualization and making it something that more people are interested in, they hosted a Hacking Open Data Hackathon that was comprised of 5 different areas that you could go into. So they hosted data sets for agriculture, energy, climate, education, and local government. And this is where I'm really excited is we actually had, these were duos, so half of the duos are here to kind of talk about their experience. So we have 2, we have Suraj and Josh, and they're both going to come up and walk you through the vizzes that they made for this hackathon challenge. And I'm going to ask them to talk about their experience because I know that it wasn't necessarily 100% pristine and positive, and I participated in this as well. So I want you to hear some of the genuine authenticity that goes along with working with Tableau. So Suraj, you're up first. Let me move it like this. I'll do this.
Okay, so I am Suraj. I work as a business intelligence analyst with University of Phoenix, and I take no credit in getting this location or anything done because I wasn't a part of it. I just work for University of Phoenix, and I love Tableau, and I work in Tableau. So, like Anne mentioned, the Hacking Open Data competition was not a competition really. It was just an event.
Yeah.
Like you say, so.
Large group project, I don't know.
Yeah, a group project.
Some more stress for our lives.
Yeah. So I was part of Team Energy, like it says here, although I got the hashtag wrong. It was supposed to be Whizzing EN, but that was part of the pressure because it was like a defined 4 or 5 day group event, and it was virtual, so obviously there wasn't a physical location. You have to work through it online. I was assigned a partner. Let me scroll to that. He was Anand Varanasi. I think he's in Pennsylvania. He's a student. He's pretty new with Tableau, so I got a chance to not only work with him, understand how he thinks about data, get together online, although collaboration was a bit of a problem because it was virtual, but that was part of the hacking challenge in itself. And since he was new, I also got a bit of a chance to mentor him, but again, he came up with some amazing ideas, and this is something that we put together. We put together basically. So again, this is not a whiz I'm super proud of. So if you don't like it, please let me know because I don't like it. But yeah, it was part of the challenge. It was supposed to be done in 4 or 5 days. Um, so number one, the biggest challenge was to find the data. Obviously open data, so you have several sources you can look for, but to find a data that was telling a story about energy and that was good enough to make a visualization. So that was, in my opinion, the biggest challenge, because if you do not have a good data, however good viz you make it, you won't be able to tell a good story with it. So we found a good data set in from the data source, EIA.gov website. It was basically a collection of, it basically had information about what states generate electricity and in what form. So after going through a lot of iterations, I came up with this idea, which I really like. I wanted to tell a story about non-renewable resources versus renewable resources. So obviously I can show this in several different ways, but I really like this idea of showing them side by side and in a red and green kind of colors, although these are not the best colors to choose, but red is bad, green is good. So what I'm trying to tell here is not that not that there is a decline in the energy production through non-renewable sources, and not that there's an increase in energy production through renewable sources. What I'm really trying to tell is the gap. Is the United States generates, and I should have totaled it up, but let's say in 2016, United States generated so many thousand megawatt hours of energy using coal, which was 17% less than the previous year, which is good, but it accounted for 32% of all energy production. And coal combined with natural gas and nuclear, all these are bad for the environment. They create pollution while you're also generating energy. So that is the kind of story I wanted to say. And compared to that, you can see there is an increasing trend here, which is okay, which is good, but it's just a fraction of the non-renewable energy resource. So what I could have done is, what I did rather is I made the axis on this chart the same as this chart, so you can actually see the difference. That was, again, I think, a good decision I made. What I could have done more is, I just added a note here, is although electricity generation through renewable resources has gone up with time, a lot remains to be done. Now a good story, a good visualization would expand on that thought, which I did not get the data or I did not get the time. But a good visualization would actually suggest on what I mean by a lot can be done. I could find some new data sets and I can say, okay, these states are doing good, or this is the percent of energy you're generating, and you can expand on that. But again, time constraint. What I also wanted to do was, again, this is not very good, but which states generate most electricity? This idea was actually Anand's, and he suggested that what we can do is we can classify top 10 states, we can just group them together and look at what percent of energy they generate using non-renewable sources and renewable sources. So I've added a little legend here, but the states in red are basically the ones that generate the highest amount of electricity, both for non-renewable and renewable source. What I wanted to do was, I did not want to show the entire United States in one graph, because Alaska is a lot far away from continental United States and it takes up a whole lot of space. But I wasn't able to do that very perfectly, because you can still see there's a lot of empty space which could have been put to a better use, but close enough. I was able to get Alaska closer to the continental United States, and so is the case with Hawaii. But what I'm trying to say here is, if you hover over the state, you can see the total 1,000 megawatt hours of energy generated. But if you hover over these diamonds, it tells you by different resources. So natural gas, coal, blah, 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 wind. And I think I have an action filter here. No, I don't. What could have been done is, if you click on a year, the state would ideally filter to show you energy production only in that year. Again, that would have been a good thing as well. The other point, and my final point, I like what I've done here is I changed this into a phone specific view. So, and that is a new feature that Tableau came up with in version 10.0. What it really does is it provides you an easy way to customize your visualization into different device specific views. So I made a phone specific view so that you don't have to log in to your laptop, and if I'm just reading about it, you're looking it up on your phone, you can still just go to the link and start playing with it. So that is something that I really suggest, and everyone should try to do in a whiz like this, or at least in an event like this. That's it from me.
I'm going to clap. I want to talk about the things that I like about this and give Suraj a little bit of credit. Like, this is genius to me. This idea of stacking the diamonds and using sort of like a dimensionality. I mean, you're not only doing sort of 2 layers here with the map, but you're adding that. So I really appreciated that. I really, like, I can get past the red-green thing because I'm a female, right? Like, it doesn't affect me. So, and then it's also really smart, and I appreciate how you said that you did that on purpose. It was a conscious decision to make that axis align so that you could see the disparity between the good and the bad in your own words. So thank you so much for coming up and bravely doing that. And I will steal this.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right, so our other one is with Josh Jackson, and I will tell you that he and I did this together, but he's going to talk about it.
Hi, my name is Josh Jackson. I work for Wells Fargo. I'm an analytics consultant there, and I work on the consumer excellence team. So I worked with Anne on this. Anne's my wife. I'm sure a lot of you don't know that, but a lot of you do. So that made it easy to collaborate with somebody.
Ish, right?
I didn't have to. Right. So
who's the boss in this?
We worked virtually the whole time.
We actually worked well together, which is surprising.
Yeah.
There's different, pluses or minuses. This was just thrown on me on a Saturday morning. I also don't like finding public data. It's hard to find, and when you do find something, it is generally pre-aggregated and hard to use in a system like this. This doesn't really work well with aggregate data, so you have to disaggregate it. But after, and I was just gonna, we're on the climate team, so I was just gonna redo the hockey puck one, line chart, call it a day. But Anne found this data set on Kaggle.com. They have really cool data sets there, but they're usually like very sentiment and language based. But this was a perfect data set where it just had the coordinates of all the trees in New York City, and then statuses on all the trees in New York City. So once I heard that that was something we were going to do, I had this idea. I've wanted to do this for a while. This is the first time I had a chance to do it. Is just to run the map in the background, and this is long form, but run the map in the background with the data points on it, but put the charts and stuff in front of the visualization so that you get your information while having everything in the back. So it didn't really fit in this format, and there's a width requirement, but we just broke up. So this is actually like 6 maps of each of the boroughs. Obviously, Manhattan first, because everybody knows what that looks like. It doesn't have Central Park, but that's...
Which is weird, we thought, but...
weird, but...
Yeah, I know, yeah. So one of my things is I really like high density data. So you truly are looking at 630,000 data points in one screen.
Yeah. So we went through, did a lot of, so it's 600? Yeah,
Oh, I said 30, so it's
yeah,
680.
So 700K lines, so there's a decent amount of data here. A lot of people hit it, but it's still not going as fast as I would like. But you can, so we did cherry and pink for spring. So you can see where the cherry, I don't know if it's going to show up on the projector. But you have to wait for it to update. But that's, see, well, and you can see, you might be able to see this, but there's like a road of cherry trees here.
Oh, that's cool.
There's specific neighborhoods here that have a lot of cherry trees that you'll be able to see. Like whatever this neighborhood here is here too. So you can kind of explore it, and if you know your trees, then you can go find the trees you like. We also,
This was like we were like 90% done.
just to show off what you could do, we parameterized the season and then made a whole new color set for fall, and then Googled the colors of the leaves in fall. For the first 20 or so, I don't get to do
No, they are all legitimate, guys.
After about here, it falls apart. But so then you can see, in theory, what it looks like in fall, and you can check it this fall if you'd like.
That's fun.
So it was a great project to do. This is calculation just by have to find the square miles and then calculate out how many alive, okay trees, sort of okay, and then dead trees. And then we did a calculation to figure out how much CO2 all the trees were sequestering. And so you could hover, and that's pretty much the main hover action. You could switch to semi-trucks, got that calculation, adding a little depth here and there. But you have to wait for the calculation to go through. It's only 90 semi-trucks, but whatever. And then probably the last thing, unless there's something else you want to point out, is let's do one up here. Made a cute little hover that shows the tree name and then the scientific name underneath it. The one thing I learned about this that I just kind of came across while I was doing it is normally in Tableau, if you do this, all these would be different sizes. So yeah, the tooltips would expand and contract based on how much text you have. So with that dotted line across, it sets it, that would be the minimum width it could be, so it looks more consistent. I wish that there was transparency on the graphs, but they don't have that.
Yeah, so vote out transparent sheets. This is the use case for it.
So the transparency looks cool on the text tables and stuff, but graphs don't have it. Anyway, that's it. It's a fun little graph. Doesn't have a mobile version because it's too big.
It would go on forever. I took a picture of it. I think it scrolls like so far on your phone, but.
Oh.
Any
Yeah.
questions or anything? Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you nailed it on the head. I was really concerned about using open data, and it's surprising because they offered so many data sources, and I even kind of said that in the beginning, but you'll find that it's really sparse data sometimes, so it can be really challenging. I was really lucky to find this on Kaggle and just, I mean, honestly, like, can you imagine, like, I put it in the blurb in the top that this was all done by volunteers, that volunteers went out in New York City in 2000, I think it's 15, and they went through and they geotagged every single tree and found the particulars, and there's dead trees in there, like, there's a significant amount of dead trees. So that was one thing I thought was really interesting, is if you just looked at all the dead trees, and we don't point it out that much, but they're not sequestering anything. They need to be replanted, so.
That's all this stuff up here is lost.
It's just not, helping out. And I think the other interesting thing was just, I really like this concept of an urban forest, and then as I learned more about it, it was just really intriguing to understand how much it does influence our climate and how much it does genuinely positively impact, our everyday lives, especially in metropolitan areas. It was insane, like the temperature changes, and it's something crazy, like, I don't even know, like, for every shade tree, I can't even remember, but it was pretty cool. So it was a fun project, and I will say Josh had the aesthetic eye on this one. He put it to life, this idea of the maps as a background. I would have never conceived of that, so I think that's really what makes it special for me.
Yeah. So, and then also, Those
And
who don't
then,
know,
yeah, there's a tree map on
this is a tree map.
a map of trees, of course, just for a little snarkiness.
Yeah,
So the
Anyways.
background is, you use floating technique for the other dashboards on top of the,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is all
Okay.
tiled in the back, then everything on the front is floated and in front of it, and that's what lets it, you know, you can do dead stuff. So it can. It's faster on your home computer if you download the book, but allegedly, like if people hit it a lot, it'll go faster.
Yeah, so everyone go visit the Viz, and then we'll all
But-
get the benefit of caching.
So there's all the dead trees. That one actually shows up nicely, so that's good. You can see like if there's groups of them. I think in Staten Island there's like a big group of them. I don't know.
well,
So
Selected as result of it.
it was selected Viz of the Day, which is pretty cool. So for those of you that aren't familiar with that, Tableau Public goes out and they find visualizations that they want to put on display, I guess, make Viz of the Day. So this was recently chosen as Viz of the Day, which I think kind of makes it all worthwhile because the collaboration was definitely intense, especially when I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we just parameterize the color of the trees? And it's like, we have a 3,500 pixel Viz. What more do you want?
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. You can check it out. I have it on my Tableau Public too, but it's on hers.
So I hope this this is my selfish thing, is I hope this inspires you to get more active and kind of see what the Tableau public community is really like. And there's these types of things always going on, and you can say what you want. That kind of segues really well into my next point, which is about the Iron Viz feeder contest. So hang on just a second here. Let's see if this works. So, Tableau has what's called Iron Viz at their customer conference, which is in October this year. How many people are familiar with what Iron Viz is? Okay. How many people are familiar with Iron Chef? More people. Okay, so it's a battle to the death where you spend 20 minutes vizzing your life out to win glory. So the idea is they have a couple feeder rounds, and they usually touch on either new Tableau features or they're specific. I think there was a political one last year because it was an election year, obviously. There was one that was geared towards mobile. So this is the first round, so this is a great chance for you guys to jump in, or at least to start seeing what some of the community is doing. This one's focused on a new 10.2 feature, which is geospatial file connectors. So those of you, I know there's a couple people, like there's some ASU folks that are deep into GIS. If you are, this is for you. You can now natively connect to geospatial files. For those of you like, what am I saying? That just means polygons for different territories beyond basic state, zip code. It can be climate ranges. It can be other things. And the idea is that you use these spatial connectors to plot out polygons on map of the world or whatever your region is. And so it's very specific. You have to connect to a spatial file, and that's what they're going to judge you on. They have the resources out there. I want to say that they announced this, I think it was last week. It was right after this hackathon closed, of course. But it goes through to the 26th. On the 26th of March, it closes, and then there are two kind of things that occur. One is like a popular vote out on Twitter, so you'll get an opportunity to vote for whoever's you like. I think that person wins like $500 or something like that. And then there's a more formal judging process that kind of aligns with what you can expect at the Iron Viz Battle Royale that occurs at the Tableau conference. And again, like, these are people, and I'm hoping to participate. You guys can hold me accountable to that. The idea is, again, there's 3 people at the end of the day that are standing on stage, spending 20 minutes visualizing the same data set, and at the end, they're judged in front of a panel of intimidating people, and someone gets the glory of being the Iron Viz champion. So if you're looking for a way to get involved, this is a great one to check out, especially if you're interested in GIS or just want to, put yourself out there to be judged. in a positive way, okay? So I want to kind of talk about 10.2 and what's new, and this is for me too. So the spatial file connector is probably the biggest thing. 10.2 wasn't a huge release. I think they kind of did a lot of like little cleanups or like good tweaks. It was funny, like someone asked me what the first thing I noticed was about 10.2, and they had moved to checkbox. I was like, oh my god, you know, I'm never going to find this checkbox again. It's on the left instead of the right. So not a lot of huge UI changes where when you talk about 9 to 10, it's completely different. You know, it's white versus the gray. So there are some really good kind of smaller features. One that I've actually used recently is the calculated field join on tables. So if you're not familiar with what that means, so you can obviously join two tables together on a field that aligns, but often you might need to do some sort of manipulation on a field in one table to another one. I think a good example is probably dates. Like how often are you like, yeah, you know, I could link this together on date, but this one's like date time and this one's just date, or maybe you're trying to aggregate it up to, you know, you only have monthly in one and not on the other. This is a great alternative to data blending, and so it's really nice because you just go in, you have your two tables, and you just type in the calculation for each, and then you create the join. So it really unlocks a lot of potential in that. Another thing, I didn't put this on here, but it says now you can union together tables in the same database. So that was one thing that they introduced originally was unioning, and that was more of like a 9.3 feature. They've extended that out now, so you can actually union together tables inside of like the same SQL database, which is really nice. I'm actually working on a project right now where, if you can imagine, like you have your client data in separate tables, they're all the same thing, but maybe they're separated, and you need to join it together because you're using, you know, your client ID or something as a filter. This is a great opportunity for you to union it as a data source and then leverage your key, your client key or something like that, and have one workbook that kind of rules them all. So that's really cool and really special. I think you can do a lot more with unioning in general. There's like a wildcard union, so if you're kind of in the financial world, you can do that too. You can wildcard and find all your statements that have the same, you know, beginning acronyms. There's also automatic date parse. I encourage you guys to Google this because they put a word cloud of all the different date combinations out there, and this just automatically figures out what your date is in like reality. So it eliminates the need to go through that fancy notation of figuring out what your format of your data is and how you get it to the right format so you can start manipulating it. And then another kind of interesting feature I want to highlight, because this is really particular, this is something I've run into in my career, but a lot of government people run into this, is some people say WCAG or WCAG, or you can say it two different ways, but this is basically a set of accessibility rules that kind of govern whether something you have out, I guess, digitally is compliant for people who need alternative accessibility, so kind of thinking blind or deaf individuals. And they say conformance. They've come a long way in this, and some of those specifics are being able to have someone who is blind still interact with a visualization, which is a tough thing to say out loud. And how do you break that down? But it's, you know, making it such that things like text readers can now explain what the data is present, you know, on the page, and giving other opportunities. So it really opens up the field a lot that they're going in this, and I think it shows their commitment to becoming mainstream and well adopted. And then general improvements, table calculation assistance. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is intriguing. They did something in 10 to make it better. They started with highlighting and kind of understanding, and now they've added a secondary assistance, which is just like a bracket that shows you kind of like the order that the table calculation is occurring in. So that's pretty interesting. And then my favorite new thing is they started adding new workbook formatting features when they had 10.0. It meant you could change the font for the entire workbook, which was pretty powerful. The next thing that they did is now you can turn off grid lines for the entire workbook, which is my #1 thing. So you can adjust all the lines in there. So grid lines, reference lines. I think even like borders and that kind of thing, you can start manipulating that at a workbook level instead of spending that last, you know, eon just doing polishing and formatting and extracting some of that stuff and making it compliant with whatever your brand standard is. So some of those things are really cool, and hopefully they'll continue to do that. And then there's one last. Well, Michael, do you have any other features you want to talk about before I do the big reveal?
Do the big reveal.
Okay. So the biggest thing is there's now auto-save, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. If you've ever sat with me for any period of time, I incessantly click the save icon in Tableau because it doesn't auto-save. So that's now a legitimate thing. So you can rest assured you can stay in the flow of visiting, and If it crashes, which it's probably going to at some point in your career, it will be auto-saved and you won't lose your work. So now you have to unlearn that bad click habit. All right. Any questions or before I move on to the actual workout, the exercise for tonight? Nope. All right. You'll have more chances. Okay. So I kind of introduced this last time, I think. This is something that I participate in. So there's kind of 3 things out in the online social community you can do to beef up your Tableau skills or to just kind of stay with it. I like doing it. I think it's fun. It keeps me engaged and it keeps me connected to a larger group of peers. So there's Makeover Monday, there's Workout Wednesday, and there's Viz for Social Good. Kind of high level on that. Makeover Monday, Andy Kriebel and Eva Murray drop a pristine data set on you, and they say, hey, you know, we found this visualization. We think you can do better, or we think you can do something different. Have at it. They both make visualizations, and then they're doing kind of more this year, where they're actually giving a lot of feedback, and they're selecting like 3 to 5, I would say, at the end of the week, and they're actually giving their feedback on what they liked about those visualizations. I think, have you been picked for one of those? No. Josh was picked for some crazy mobile one that was really interesting about taxis, and it actually was the same concept with like the diamonds too. Yeah, so I don't know what that is, but I really like diamonds on a map. So that's one way to get involved. If you're looking to just kind of get started, maybe you don't have Tableau at work, or you're here just purely for fun, download Tableau Public for free, Google Makeover Monday, and you'll get a data set, and every Monday you can work on it. And here are some shining examples from our community. These have changed from last month as well. So Layla, who's not here tonight, she participates quite regularly. So this was a recent dashboard she developed for Andy Kriebel's American Express spending in 2016. And then Suraj, I hope you don't mind that I use this one. I think this was the most recent one. Was this? Oh, not this week. Not this week. It was last week's. It's the top YouTube gaming channels and just kind of stats on that. And then Josh did this kind of off the wall EU potato harvest report. So they gave us information on potatoes in the European Union, and we were all tasked in kind of understanding what was going on there. So I encourage you to participate in that. If you do, let me know, and you'll see yourself up there, and you'll probably be coming up here and talking about it. And then Workout Wednesday. So Andy Kriebel also runs Workout Wednesday. If I had to pick, I might even pick this one over Makeover Monday because it's very functional. They give you a list of requirements. They give you almost like a business question that you have to answer, and then you're tasked to doing it. What's really nice is they develop out their workbook. They give it to you. It's on Tableau Public. If you're starting out fresh, new, download it. Just see what they're doing. If you want to challenge yourself, do it start to finish on your own. If you get stuck halfway through, Google around. If you still can't get to the result, then see what they did. This has been really fun for me because what I will find out a lot of times is that different people in the community arrive to the same conclusion in much different ways. So it really opens your mind to this idea that there's not one right answer. And I think that that personally helps my own development process to know, like, yeah, I can Google it, but if I don't understand, like, that guy's logical approach, that doesn't mean I can't get it. It just means I need a different way of thinking. So sometimes that's even great if you get stuck seeing different community members and how they resolve problems and saying, like, oh, okay, I didn't know you could do that. And you really strengthen your overall bench skills, I would say, when you do that. I'll tell you that they're challenging. I had this aspiration to do this dynamic trellis chart demo, and this guy right here, it took hours upon hours, and it's very detailed. It wasn't so much the dynamic trellis part, which is actually really interesting, but there's some very specific formatting in there that I think was probably not a good use of time. We'll leave it at that. But in general, they're actually really helpful, and that's what I'm going to be going over tonight. And then Viz for Social Good. If the hackathon taught you anything, it's that you can also Viz for Social Good. So this is done by Chloe Sang. She actually is an analyst at Twitter. So she posts data sets up on her site, Viz for Social Good, and asks the community to participate. Hey, you know, UNICEF would really like a visualization for their For Every Child campaign. Here's a cleansed data set that they have given us. Can you go out and make a visualization? And if you do, they're going to use it somewhere. They'll put it in project portfolio. They'll put it on their site. They'll put it up on their social media. All sorts of different things. I got involved on the first one, which was a Women in Data Science conference. It was a very simple ask. They just wanted a map of where the conference was being held virtually. And my viz, like my map, it was black. It was very basic, got chosen. And it's really nice to see the fruits of your labor out there in the wild. And it's another great way to promote yourself and feel good about what you're doing and know that it has an impact. Okay, so now it's time. Let's get hands-on. I do have 2 more slides. First off, did anybody actually go to the link on Emma White's blog to download or start working on the Mary Mecco challenge? You did. Okay. Anybody else? Did I miss any other hands? No. Okay. Did you finish it?
Not really.
Okay.
But,
Did you get? No, it's okay. I want to ask you, how far did you get, and what would you say your Tableau level is?
I'd say probably pretty beginner, but I'm pretty
Okay.
well. I know Excel really well and SQL really well. So I downloaded the data set and then kind of just manipulated a lot of it in Excel. Just kind of took shortcuts that way,
Okay.
so that I could get it in a format that I thought I could work with in Tableau. So I'm not sure if that was the right way to do it, or if there's an easier way to do it in Tableau. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that that's something we should talk about, and I will talk about, because it was a very interesting structured data set. I actually didn't do anything with the structure. I manipulated all the structure in Tableau to get to the results, so that could be helpful for you. So what we're going to be doing, and I'll actually go to the picture first, is we're going to be building a Mary Mecco chart. I had this kind of intro slide that says what a Mary Mecco chart is. This is Jonathan Drummy talking. A Mary Mecco chart is a set of stacked bars placed next to each other. Each bar is of the same height, and the bars are placed next to each other without much gap or space in between. Actually, I think I said that. So it's also got a couple other names: mosaic plot, matrix chart, and so on. If I broke it down, this is what makes it special. The bars are of the same height but different width. So when you look at this example, you can see it's stacked to 100%. The bars vary in width. You can see there's like 2 sets of dimensions here. There's like a male and a female. There's a pass fail, and then there's like a dimension across the top of. These are like different like schools at a college, I think, and this is like supposed to be admission rates. But the key takeaway here is that you've got stacked bars at 100%. You're showing the distribution of a specific dimension within there, and then you're also trying to show the distribution of another dimension in the same view. And the idea here was to refute, and this is not what we're going to be doing, but this idea was to refute this idea that the female admission rate doesn't match with the male admission rate, and it was kind of skewed because I think fewer females or more females were getting rejected from like school A or something. All right, so let me switch modes and let me show you what we're going to be making. And again, this comes, I'm going to pull up Emma White's blog to show you kind of the specifics of what they are looking for. So this is her inspiration. So she says, there was an image in a newspaper that showed the percentage of men and women employed in different job levels. What makes the chart confusing is that the length of the bars represents how many jobs at that level make up the total workforce. The bar is then split by gender. When we get to the vice president level or higher, so this area down here, the bars become way too small to see the gender split. So she actually went a step further and said this was revisualized by jump charts into a Mary Mecco version. And then even more to that point, Mary Mecco isn't something you could do before Tableau 10. So it's kind of a bleeding edge visualization. So it's probably another reason why she's demonstrating this and having us kind of work on it. So at the bottom here, you'll see her actual Tableau viz. So this is her live public viz. I can interact with it. And then she's got the specs here of what you should do. So show the 50% point of equality as a grid line. She has the size of the dashboard. Add on the direction of less equality. Label the columns of the Mary Mecco to match mine. Label the first 2 segments male, female. Make sure your tooltips match mine. And then she says, you know, download the data. So I want to kind of look at this. This is always how I start the process. Is I've never done a Mary Mecco chart before this. How would I even go about it? And for me, what was easy to understand mathematically is that if you look at these, the width of the bar is the same for each dimension. It's the height that varies, and that's across each set. So I knew instinctively whatever it was going to be that we ended up with, somehow I had to ensure that the width here was the same and that the height stayed intact. Let's dive in to the workbook, and I want to start with the data. This is going to kind of give away some of what I did, so I apologize for that. You're going to see my calculated fields here. These first three with the blue is what the data set had in it. So there were 3 columns, 2 dimensions, 1 measure. It had the job type, it had the subtype, and I hated this data set because it has male, female, and then total. So they're all in the same field, which makes absolutely no sense. And then it has the percentage of each. And the percentage is just expressed as a number, so this is truly 19%. I think this might have been some of what you maybe ran into is like, what's going on here? You wouldn't necessarily expect it to be that way. You would maybe want more information where you would add things together to get the total, but obviously we would need another number because we only have the percentage at that point. We can't add those percentages together to get the overall spread of the job types. So let's walk through what I did, and again, here's like a better demonstration of what the data set kind of looks like. So we have our C level, we have the female percentage, the male percentage, and then the total percentage. So only 1% of jobs are even C level. Okay, so this is what it kind of looks like. This is me going through it. All right, let's filter just to that subtype total to get an understanding of what the width is probably going to end up being. So you can see the entry level now takes up 53%, manager 28, 12, and so on. Me being kind of the analyst would always make sure these added up to 100, and it did, so that was kind of nice. But I thought that this was going to be problematic because this is nowhere close to what we need. My other view was, okay, let's look at all of it together. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I pull out the subtype, the job type, and then I've added an index to rank these, to sort these in each of the different groups. So you get a feel for the spread that we're going to be achieving. And this is where I kind of figured out what I needed to do. So step 1 for me is this subtype of total was problematic. So I wanted to isolate out, I wanted to essentially null out those values so they didn't display. I wanted to get to a point where I could have subtype and percentage. And let's make this like a bar, and we can even make it like a stacked bar. But I didn't want, let's see what color total is. I didn't want the total to be on there. And actually it's like not really genuine to do that. It'd be kind of like that. So what I started out doing was making a calculated field to eliminate that so I didn't have to filter it out. So let me show you what it is. That way I don't mistype. So this is very basic. It's just, if the subtype is male, then give me the percentage. Else if it's female, then give me the percentage. Otherwise, null it out. I don't want to see it. Does that make sense to everyone, what I'm kind of doing there? Like, this gives me the ability to now add up those percentages for just the male and female dimensions, and the total becomes null value. It's not part of the view, but it's not filtered out. So that leads to this. You can see my 6 nulls. So I've got my male number and my female number, and I have the job type there. I don't have anything on filter. All of my totals are just nulls. So this is kind of step 1. We're getting close. It's kind of weird because it's supposed to usually be to like 100%, and these are already expressed as percentages. So it's kind of, you're at an advantage. You don't have to do an additional percentage calculation, but it makes it a little bit weird as we're talking through it. So we're close here. The next step is really how we get the width. Some things you need to know about Tableau in general is if you are in a bar chart world and you have a discrete pill, a blue guy up here, these are now, what do they like to say, bucketed chunks. You're not going to get the option to unlock what we need to unlock, which is to put something on the size card there. And I'll show you what that looks like right now. And I don't even think it's, like, I can change the size of the bars, but I can't really throw any, I don't think I can throw anything on the side. Let's see what happens. Well, if I do, this is kind of what occurs, which is not what we want at all. So I also had this kind of idea that we needed to somehow account for that and put the width, that total being our width on the bottom, as the size, and then somehow put them in order. Are you guys with me still? I need to get to the total calculation. So this is where I'm now doing a level of detail expression. This is kind of the reverse. So I now want that value of 1 to be affixed to every C level independent of subtype, right? Just C level, making a new field. What is the total percentage of job types that are C level? Don't care about the gender. So this is step 1 here. And this actually isn't a level of detail expression. This is just how I would do the reverse, right? So now I'm saying if the subtype is total, then percentage. I don't even need to put the else null, else 0, just end it right there. It'll null itself out. And you can see what that results in. Now these are nulls, but we've got our 1 there. And what I really want is this guy. I want the 1 everywhere. I want the 53 everywhere. To get to that part, you're going to do a level of detail expression. So here's the second step in that. How many people are familiar with what a level of detail expression is? Okay. So level of detail expressions are really powerful. It basically lets you adjust the granularity of the data. You can aggregate up or you can go deeper. What's really important to understand about Tableau is that you're always aggregating to the data in the view. And quite often, people that come from the Excel world, you're accustomed to making a pivot table, taking those results, putting it into another table, doing some sort of calculation off of it, or maybe you're even pivoting it again. But the concept is you're aggregating to a certain spot, and then you're taking that result and data out, and then you're doing the same thing somewhere else, and you're somehow meshing them together. To do that in Tableau, you need to use a level of detail expression. And this lets you define what that granularity is, pick and choose which fields you want to aggregate to. The notation is my favorite part about it because it's really fancy. It starts with open brace, and you can use kind of 3 modifiers. You can either do include, exclude, or fixed. The key about fixed is you're setting it. You say fixed, it's always these fields, and you define out the individual fields. When you say exclude, you say if it happens to be in the view, don't use it. Don't make it part of this aggregation. Or in the world where maybe you're zoomed out a little bit and you want a little bit more dimensionality on there, you include it so that it's now taken into consideration with the aggregation. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, they're really powerful. I think that this is probably one of my favorite things. They can be very infuriating sometimes, but these really do unlock a lot of magic, especially when you're dealing with kind of like executive summary dashboards or this concept of like a before and after comparison, or you're doing some sort of like division, some sort of ratio. So what I've done is now I've just said exclude the field subtype and sum up that same calculation I had before. So it's going to ignore the subtype dimension, and now it's going to add that up. The other best part about level of detail expressions is you can consider it affixing a new field onto your data set, which means you get to pick how you aggregate it after that. When you drag it on, you can set it as sum, you can set it as min, you can set it as max. And that's really what makes them shine. A lot of times you're using some sort of like already pre-bundled data and pushing it out to get to what you need. So it's really cool. Okay. So that is step 2. So this was step 3, so I'll take this off. So I have the total step 2. This was the view we had before, if you remember. And if I put that onto size, it's better, right? Like it seems like it's all the right links comparatively. I mean, you can even see that sizing there. We've got the 1, we've got the 10, and so I mean, we've got our 53 there. But we're not getting that continuous spread that we want, and that's because we've got a discrete dimension on our columns, and we need to adjust for that. So here's final steps. What I did, and I will clear this out actually, is I took the total here and I dropped it up there. And I've got this on size. And one thing I didn't mention is you get options now when you're in this continuous world to set the sizing of that. And you can see, I'll take this off. So that's the view. That's with just it now in continuous form instead of discrete. So to be clear, what I've done between here and here is I've taken the job type and I've moved it over to the marks card. So now it becomes detail within the view. And I've pushed up that total value that we made, that level of detail calculation, to the top. So So now that is represented across here, and that unlocks my capability of adjusting the size here. And there's a couple things we can do. The manual is that basic slider that we had before. And the fixed is where you're using a measure. It automatically chooses something, but we will drag in that value. And then you can choose the alignment on this. It's either left, right, or center. The way I like to think about this is, how do you want it to be measured? Do you want it to be measured from the left, so from the left, from 0 forward, or do you want it to be measured from the right, so from a number down? And the spoiler of this is it's actually easier to do the right, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a running sum. And that kind of means, like, I know where 1 is, and then I know if I add that total to it, then I know where, 34 is, and I can figure out where that right edge is, and then backfill to my viz. So this will end up being on right, and you can see it's not doing what it needs to do yet, and that's because we need to turn this into that running total, hopefully. And I will go in and I will adjust this. See if we get some interesting features here. So I want to specify the dimensions, and I want it to be across job type, so you can see it getting better. And this is where I kind of talked about earlier, that table calculation helper. You can see it's now plotting, like, in the brackets there, the 1, the 2, the 3, and thankfully I guess I put the label on there, but me just doing that running total didn't get me where I needed to be, because Tableau kind of tries to figure out what you want that running sum to be. And something more complex like this, I guess a good analogy would be like, a good thing to say would be to lock it down. So when you set the dimensions, when you specify the dimensions, that's when you're determining how it's going to start partitioning and addressing that table calculation. So we're just going to say, let's do it based on job type. We don't care about the subtype, and we don't care about the sort order. That we can let lie for now, but if we cared, we could start sorting it by a different way. And I think we get to the point where we actually have the view. I apologize, because the one last thing I did was I sorted this, and that made this is now alphabetical, so it made the C-suite go to a bad spot. So instead, you'll want to right-click, go in, and set your sort. I'm setting it off of a descending sum from that total, that width that we found. So now we're seeing it, and it makes sense, I think, logically in what we see in just the professional world. It went from, like, entry to manager all the way up to C-suite. So that's kind of the last step there. The one thing I will touch on is Emma mentioned a lot of formatting things, and this probably took me a little bit more time even than developing out the Marimekko. And I'll show you some of the tricks that she used in case you're curious. So I couldn't figure out how to get that male right in that spot. Anybody have any guesses on how to do that? So it's not the label. I wish it were the label in the upper left, because you could do that, right? Like, that's a thing. It doesn't work. Like, so legit, here's the label. Look, it's set to top left. That's not the top left at all. So what this actually is, and let me enlighten you, let me show you, is this is a reference line. Yeah, so there is a male reference line in here set at 100 with the value now displayed below it. So this is where we talk about, like, formatting to the nth degree. I don't develop like this in my professional life. Like, this is, purely for fun. You could do this, but these are some of the nuanced things that you get into when you talk about how in the world do you do that. So it's something good to keep in your back pocket, to keep this concept of you can use a reference line as a label. And in this world, you just make the line not visible, and then you change what the label says. And another handy thing about reference lines that I do use all the time is I use it to set my axes. So if you wanted to go to a certain height, like you always wanted to go to 100, you can do that, and you can get this ugly little push pin, which doesn't show on the web, which is great, but I can still see it. But that gives you control. If you define what that reference line is, you know that your range is always going to be at a set value. All right. Did that help you at all in your process and what you kind of ran into? I'm interested to know, what were some of the things you did? Did you try to take that total out and put it separately?
Yeah, I just made it a column instead of a row.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions, comments about this? Is this intimidating? Good, bad? Intimidating? So my comments would be, Mary-Meco visualization is a good pop viz or like infographic. It's not something I think you're going to productionalize and have go to all of your managers or whatever, but it does definitely help tell a really good data story where you can imagine like the first step to this view would be breaking it up and saying, okay, here's the spread of the total different jobs and here's the spread of gender for each of those. But you don't get that combined view of what the Mary-Meco chart offers.